Hi everyone, let's take a look at problem 25-1A, which deals with differential analysis, and it also deals with opportunity costs. Okay, the problem reads, on July 1st, Daybreak Stores is considering leasing a building and purchasing the necessary equipment to operate a retail store. Alternatively, the company could use the funds to invest in $280,000 of 5% U.S. Treasury bonds that mature in 20 years. The bonds could be purchased at face value. And then they give us some information on the cost of the store, the life of the store equipment, the cost to operate the store, and what the expected revenues were. Okay, now let's go over what we're asked to do on this problem. First, we need to prepare a report as of July 1, 2008, presenting a differential analysis of the proposed operation of the store for the 20 years as compared with present conditions. Let's tackle that one first. Okay, I've laid out on the screen here, alternative one would be to operate the store, and the other alternative would be to invest in bonds and not go ahead with operating the store. Okay, so let's come up with what the revenues would be. And I'll call one line revenues from operating the store, but for the investment in bonds, we'll just call that bond income. Okay, for the revenues for operating the store, if we look at the schedule, we can determine that they say for the first 10 years we'll make $88,000 a year, and from 11 through years 20 we'll make $96,000. So if we take equal 10 times, and I'll do it this way, I'll take the 88,000 plus the 96,000. Now I'm just combining that since they're both 10 years. We can combine that and multiply, and we come up with $1,840,000. Let's put a dollar sign around that. Okay, now the alternative would be to invest in $280,000 of 5% bonds. So what would be the revenue from that? $280,000 times 5%, right? And we would make that times 20 years. Now we'll ignore effects of the present value of money, which really should go in this analysis, but for the purposes of doing a differential analysis, we'll ignore the time value of money for now. Okay, then we need to look at the difference in cost from this alternative. So we would say costs to operate the store okay, and what we know is the cost to operate the store are $70,000 times 10. So that's, $70,000 times 20 years. So we've got $1,004,000. And then we would also have the cost of store equipment less residual value at the end of the 20 years. Okay, and the store equipment is $280,000 with $20,000 salvage value. So that would be $280,000, and then we'll get $20,000 back at the end of the 20 years for salvage value. So we're estimating that at $260,000. Okay, from there, let me slide down and let's go on to the next step. Okay, now I've moved the screen so we have a little bit more room to work with. Let's look at our incremental, I'm going to call it incremental operating income as a result of this. Okay, I'll put an underline here, and we'll take the incremental revenue of $1,008,000 less the cost, which is the 1,400,000 plus the 260. Okay, this is how I would do this. It might be a shorthand method, But here we have 180,000 of incremental revenue. But if we did nothing and invested in bonds, just copy that on down, right? Because we have no costs here, right? So we have 280,000 of revenue. Okay, that's what we need to do to take a look at solving part 1. Part 2 says, based on the results we disclosed in our differential analysis, and all of these costs represent differential analysis, right? They're all incremental costs to the decision at hand. Should we accept the proposal? And clearly we should not, because operating the store is less than the investment in bonds. Okay, then part 3 says, if the proposal is accepted, what would be the total estimated income from operating the store for the 20 years? Well, we've already solved that. We solved that. It's this number right here. Okay, the alternative one, it's the 180,000 is what we would see. Now, the reason why the problem presents it this way is the authors use a different approach to solving this one, and I will briefly show you their approach. Okay, now I've moved to a different page in the spreadsheet. This is the author's approach, where we lay out the differential cost in a slightly different manner. Here they'd say the differential revenue is really the revenue of operating the store, the $1,840,000 we already calculated, and then we subtract the revenue from investing in bonds. So in other words, we use more of an opportunity cost approach. And then what we say is, well, the real incremental revenues are really only $1,560,000. Now the costs are the same as we calculated, so the differential loss from operating the store is $100,000. And that's why when we go to question 3, they say, what would it look like if we operated the store? And we take the 1,840, then less the cost to get to the 180,000. Now you could lay it out this way, which really emphasizes the opportunity cost, but I'll go back to my approach, which I think just is more of the way I've seen it done in the real world, where you lay out the alternatives in columns so that you can calculate the incremental cost by comparing them. And for me anyway, this is a very clear analysis of how to do a differential analysis, and one that highlights the opportunity costs. Okay, thanks everybody.